I feel like anamorphic lenses work better when the subject is off to the side. So I'm sitting in the middle today because I want to see what this looks like, how it feels when I talk about something for a while, and if it makes any sense. I mean, I'm nicely framed between two bushes. I got my favorite bridges behind me, which is kind of cool. This is actually one of my favorite places to shoot because it's hard to shoot here and it not look good. You know, I mean, the only reason it's not going to look great is because the sun is directly over my head, and that's kind of annoying. But I am shooting with the 4:3 aspect ratio. You know, don't bug out, okay? I didn't mean 4:3 aspect ratio that you're looking at here. I'm talking about I'm using 4:3 of the sensor. I'm in anamorphic mode on the S5. Obviously, I'm delivering in a 2.39:1 scope aspect ratio. So stop being the aspect ratio police or looking for mistakes police. Obviously, you know what I meant. But if you didn't know what I meant, that's what I meant. And so I can move the frame if I want in post-production. But I don't know. We'll see how it looks. I'm experimenting. And these are some of the things that I think about when I shoot. You know, somebody left me a comment the other day saying, you know, you always talk about how people should know what they're doing with their gear, have some intention before you spend money, really think about what kind of work you're going to do, what's the outcome that you're hoping to have. And that's true, you know, but he also said, but what are you doing with your S5? Like you always talk about your S5 and your GH5, what are you doing? And, you know, it's funny because sometimes when somebody leaves a comment, it's fair that they asked me that question, but it's clear also that they haven't watched any of my other videos because I talk about what I'm doing all the time. So one thing I'm going to say is you can, right here at YouTube, and I did that purposely, you can watch a movie, a full-length feature film that actually won a Best Feature Award at the Manhattan Film Festival last year. It's called This Is the End for Me. Shot completely on the Panasonic S5 with two Minolta Rokkor vintage lenses, 28mm f2.8 and a 50mm f1.4. You can go watch that movie. You might love it, you might hate it, whatever, but it's an example of a feature film shot all by myself with the Panasonic S5. No help, nobody else around. I shot everything by myself, and I'm proud of it. It came out pretty good. So that's a good example of what I do with my Panasonic S5. I also shot a short film. I don't know the name of the video, but I did leave some content here. I did a short film for a woman who's a sculptor, and she put a little story together, and I shot it for her upstate New York around Saugerties, and it's actually a beautiful short film. Shot that with the S5. And what did I use? I used the 20-60 kit lens to shoot that because she wasn't really well prepared and I had no idea what I was walking into. So I said, let me use my only zoom lens, you know, and I have the 20-60 and I actually love that lens. It works great. I mean, I really only use it for 20mm when I need something more, you know, wider than 28mm because my widest lenses are 28. I mean, I have a 24mm anamorphic lens, but it's a 1.33 squeeze factor, so, and it's also an APS-C lens, so it's a 28mm equivalent. What I'm using right now is a series 35mm f1.8 APS-C anamorphic lens. This is a 40mm equivalent, and more, this is becoming my favorite focal length because I like the way it doesn't distort the subject, but it still gives you that anamorphic look, and I know 1.33 is not enough for a lot of people, but for me, it's fine, especially when I shoot at night or when there's a lot of lights behind me. The bokeh is definitely different than a spherical lens, and I get those lens flares if I want them. I don't really care about them. And the lens itself is just beautiful. The glass, the way it renders the image is amazing. People comment on it all the time. Can't speak English today. So yeah, the question, what do you do with your gear? It's funny, I I watched another video this morning by Geeky Nerdy, who was talking about this very subject. He did a Q&A, and I highly recommend watching his channel because he does really comprehensive, amazing reviews of gear. And he was talking about the same thing, like, you know, when you're choosing a camera, lenses, lights, whatever, you should have some kind of a goal in mind, like some kind of an intention. What kind of work are you doing? You know, what's your whole, you know, desire for what you need to, you know, accomplish the project that you're trying to shoot. I mean, you shouldn't just randomly buy equipment just to cover yourself for anything possible, because if you were somebody who needed to cover anything possible, you would be like the luckiest and I'm talking about hired to cover anything possible, you'd be like the luckiest filmmaker, because who really gets asked to be able to cover anything possible? Like, you got to cover sports, wildlife, you know, narrative, documentary, close-ups, you know, photography, you know, like get a great hybrid camera so you can do portraits, but also shoot my movie for me or my documentary or my wedding or whatever. Like, I mean, it's great to have a great all-around camera, but you're never going to be able to cover every possibility of a need. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to only be able to cover, well, you're only going to be able to control buying gear that's going to cover what you think you need. I mean, I think if you're a beginner, and if you haven't really had any experience shooting, if you don't really know what you do yet, you don't know your style yet, then, you know, like, spend $250 or $200 on a camera, get a good, you know, interchangeable lens camera, like go get an A6000 or Sony A6100 or something like that, or get a Canon M50, get on eBay or get on MPB, get something that costs $200, get a 50 millimeter lens, a nifty 50, it'll cost you like $50, or get a vintage lens for $20, and start to get out there and shoot and figure out what you like to do and what you want to do. Or, you know, you might have an idea right away, like, my goal in life is to work for the NBA or the NFL. Well, then watch a bunch of channels of people who work for the NBA or the NFL, or do sports or do high school sports or whatever, and figure out through your due diligence and through your research what you need, and then look for a camera that's going to cover those needs. You know, are you going to be indoors a lot? Are you going to have to worry about low light? Is it going to be dark? Do you shoot at night? Are you going to be shooting in bright sunlight all the time? Do you need a lot of dynamic range? Are you shooting handheld all the time? Do you have to think about IBIS? Do you have to get a gimbal perhaps? If not, are you going to be on sticks most of the time? You know, meaning a tripod? Then you don't have to think about that. You know, like, you can get really specific with it. You know, you're doing documentary work mostly, so, you know, do you have to really think about the colors as much as somebody doing feature films? I mean, all these cameras have great color science, because almost every camera now you could shoot 10-bit 422. So you could push colors around, you could pretty much get whatever you want, as long as you get into, like, DaVinci Resolve and really learn how to use it properly. But I just think, like, going out there randomly and buying something that covers everything, like, you know, I know people have cameras and they go, oh man, if only the rolling shutter was better on this camera. And then when you ask them what they've done nothing. They've just, you know, gone in their backyard and done whip pans in the backyard and said, oh, sucks, you know, like, I gotta get down to 10 milliseconds. But so what? Like, why? I mean, unless you're really wealthy and you could afford to have that kind of hobby where you just spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a camera that has amazing rolling shutter, like, you see what I'm saying? Like, why? What difference does it make? You know, most professional filmmakers, they're not really worried about rolling shutter all that much. Nobody really even notices it. But if it's something that preoccupies you and keeps you up at night, then okay, pick a camera with great rolling shutter. Probably get a Micro Four Thirds camera. And then you're like, oh, Micro Four Thirds, that's the worst. Well, guess what? It's not the worst. It could be the best. You know, like I said in my last video, the Panasonic GH7 could be the perfect camera to a lot of people. I mean, it is packed with everything. It is a magnificent camera, incredibly capable on every level, like, really no weaknesses. But, you know, a lot of people might go, oh, no, nope. Because what if I need, you know, to get a blurry background, if I'm shooting 10 feet away, I need a full frame camera no matter what. And they ain't doing shit. They're not doing anything. And besides, if you know what you're doing, you could figure that out, even with Micro Four Thirds. I mean, yes, there are limitations to the blurry background, but that's only if your intent is to shoot somebody from 20 feet away at 28 millimeters or 50 millimeters, and you absolutely have to have a blurry background. Like, okay, then I guess you need a full frame camera. But if you're just really worried about an incredibly beautiful frame, composition, getting things in focus, pushing a story forward, Micro Four Thirds is amazing, as is APS-C, as is full frame. They're all amazing. Like I'm saying, you should look more for, what the camera does beyond just the sensor. Do you need autofocus or do you not need autofocus? Are you you're a hybrid shooter, you're a photographer, you're a filmmaker, like, then you start looking at the specs, like what's going to hold you back. Are you going to be shooting sound directly into the camera? You might want to think about the preamps inside of that camera. Are you going to be using an external monitor? Then you don't care about the monitor. But if you're not going to be using an external monitor, you might want a flippy, zippy, super zippity doodah screen that does everything. But some people might be happy with a Blackmagic that just flips up, and that's it. Because you're always going to be behind the camera and you don't care. Or you're going to use an external monitor. But if you're just going to be flying with the monitor on the camera, focus on the monitor. If you need the sound internal 32-bit float, focus on the camera. Focus on the camera. That's what I'm saying. Think about the type of work that you're going to make, the type of art that you're going to create. Kind of, think about a story that you would do, like whether it be anything from a wedding to a narrative feature film and everything in between. Pick what is appealing to you, what you see yourself doing, and then think about what you would need to accomplish all the shots. Like, why don't you learn how to write a script, learn how to make a shot list, learn how to do a storyboard. Those are great tools to understand what kind of camera you're going to need. If you know how to draw a storyboard, that's going to go a long way in deciding what camera you want to use. If you are going to get a shot list together and really understand what that means, that's going to go a long way. If you just go around and take photographs with your phone and think about how you want to recreate that in a film, that's going to go a long way in deciding upon what camera you want to get, what's going to work for you. APS-C, full frame, Micro Four Thirds, colors, lenses. What lenses are available for the mount of camera that you're going to get? If you're going to get a Panasonic Lumix camera, you need the L mount. Unless you get a GH7, then you need Micro Four Thirds. Do you want to have the ability to adapt pretty much anything to your camera? Micro Four Thirds might be the way to go. But, you could pretty much adapt most lenses to any of these mounts, but it's something to think about. What kind of lenses are available for each camera system? Want a Nikon? What kind of lenses does Nikon have? Same thing with Lumix. What kind of lenses do they have available? Are you somebody who just wants to use native lenses because you want to get the most out of the specs, like the autofocus and the aperture control and things like that? Or are you somebody who wants to use vintage lenses? Kind of opens up the world to you if you're open to that. And then you have to think about what kind of adapters am I going to use? If I use Micro Four Thirds, am I going to get something that gives me more light? So you're going to have to get an adapter that's a little bit more expensive, or you just want a dumb adapter that can just literally put the lens on your camera and it just works. But then you have to think about the crop factor. Like if you have a favorite vintage lens, let's say, and actually, if this is you, you already have a little bit of experience, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you have a favorite lens, like say you love the Helios Helios 44-2, which is a 58 millimeter full frame lens. Well, if you get that for your Micro Four Thirds camera, if you're using it on a GH7 or a GH5 or, a Blackmagic Micro Four Thirds camera, suddenly that's a 116 millimeter lens because it's a double the crop factor, 2 times crop. If it's an APS-C lens, it's 58, 68, 70, 82 or something like that, like somewhere between an 80 and an 85 equivalent if you're using it on an APS-C and you adapt it, say, to a Sony camera. So suddenly it's not 58 millimeters, and you might think, whoa, this looks so different, it sucks. I only like it on my other camera. Well, maybe you had a full-frame camera. Or vice versa. Doesn't have enough reach. I can't believe it. It's so lame. Well, maybe you were using it on Micro Four Thirds, and then suddenly you put it on a full-frame camera, and all of a sudden it looks like a wide-angle lens to you. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know what you're trying to accomplish. And I think the greatest thing you could do, and I'm going to repeat this, but I already said it, learn how to write a script, or think about a wedding and think about all the things that you might have to do, or any kind of event, a concert, you know, music videos, like whatever is your thing. Maybe you're doing portrait videos of somebody. There are some really beautiful portrait type videos all over YouTube about somebody gets a friend or a model or something like that, and they tell a story with this model, but it's basically a series of portraits, but moving portraits, so it's really beautiful. Like if I were you, I would learn how to write a script, especially if you're working in documentary or narrative filmmaking, and then learn how to make a storyboard. Literally draw your shots. Draw everything that you want to put in the frame, because your composition is probably, in my opinion, the most important part of your shooting. So draw that, make a shot list, talk about all the shots that you want to get, all the angles, draw them, literally. And I think that's the best way to buy a camera. That's going to help you decide, what camera do I need? What camera is going to accomplish what I want to accomplish? And then you could start thinking about things like price versus specs and get the best camera for the money. Because of course, probably the most important part of your journey is, what's your budget? How much can you afford? Because you see, this way, when you really do your research like this and you again, do your due diligence, you're going to maximize your budget. You're going to realize that you don't have to have the greatest camera to have everything that you need. You might buy like a GH5 from 2017, and that camera might even be overkill for what you need. So this is a great way to choose, what camera do you need? Get all the other stuff in order first. Story is king. Shot list, storyboard, all that kind of stuff. That's the art of being a filmmaker. And then the camera comes last. Like, a lot of people think the camera comes first. But, you know, when you think about it, if you buy a camera first and you have no idea what you're doing, what are you doing? You know, you can learn all that stuff with your phone. Or if you're a beginner, buy a $150, $200 camera. That's it. You know, and then move on from there. And you're going to find that even with that $150, $200 camera, you can accomplish a lot of magnificence. Trust me. So, you know, I shot a feature film on my phone. So you could see that as well. That one's called The Center of Distance. It's also here on YouTube. So if you just go to my website, I mean, there are links in my description if you scroll down. But also, if you just go to rockwilk.com, there are pages for The Center of Distance, and This Is the End for Me. And you'll see one film shot with a LG V40 smartphone and another film shot with the Panasonic S5, 2 vintage lenses. So that maybe will give you some inspiration and lots of information, but maybe it'll give you some inspiration to go, you know what? I could do this. Like, that lame YouTuber did it. I could do it. So, yeah, that's what I think when you're looking for a camera. So, oh, shit. Please subscribe, and please hit the like button, and please consider joining my Patreon. That would be awesome of you. And I guess that's all I got to say about all of that.